A lot of people from San Francisco, the Peninsula, and Silicon Valley have been looking at moving into the East Bay over the last several years to escape the crazy prices over there and finally also to get a little bit more space. But we are also seeing plenty of people relocating here from completely outside of the Bay Area. And look, a lot of people absolutely love it here, and a decent amount of people kind of hate it. And that's not because the East Bay is bad. It's just because the East Bay isn't exactly what they thought it would be when they were dreaming about moving here. So today I've got a revised list of 15 things you need to know before you think about moving to the East Bay. Some of them are awesome and some of them not so much, but they are all true. Number one, everyone outside of the Bay Area and sometimes even Bay Area locals, they think the East Bay is just the urban progressive vibe of Oakland and Berkeley. But the East Bay is massive and the suburbs are a totally different world. If you just go a little bit east or south into places like Walnut Creek, Danville, or San Ramon, you are in traditional upscale manicured suburbia. If you go up 80, you find Richmond and San Pablo, where it's a little bit more blue collar. A lot of people from San Francisco or the Peninsula just assume the East Bay is cheaper and less sophisticated than than where they live. But the reality is you can drive 20 minutes from the city and find yourself in a land of pristine golf courses, soccer moms, and private country clubs. Number two, the East Bay is famous for its extreme block-by-block contrast. In places like Oakland or Berkeley, you could have a beautifully restored $2 million craftsman home right next door to a completely rundown house with a chain link fence and an RV parked in the driveway. We also have the classic divide between the hills and the flatlands. You can be standing on a street in the flats with heavy industrial buildings, and just 5 minutes up the hill, you are suddenly surrounded by gated mansions with panoramic views of the bay. Because of how the area has grown and gentrified, you really have to know the specific street you're moving to. You can't just pick a zip code because the vibe in the neighborhood can literally change from street to street or block to block. Number three, you have to know that the East Bay isn't just one big area. It's actually broken up into several very distinct sub-regions, and each one has a completely different vibe. First, you have the Berkeley and Oakland group, which is going to be more of your urban, dense setting and closest to San Francisco. Also, up in the hills, you can get amazing views of San Francisco. Just north of there in the 80 corridor, you have cities like El Cerrito, Richmond, and San Pablo. This area is a bit more blue collar and offers some more affordable options while still keeping quick BART ride into the city. Then, right through the hills, you have Lamorinda, which stands for Lafayette, Moraga, and Orinda. If you want to raise a family, you can't go wrong with any of these cities. Great schools, it's safe, and it's also highly competitive. Further east, you hit the 680 corridor. This is where you find your higher-end affluent areas like Walnut Creek, Alamo, Danville, and Diablo. Keep going south from there and you hit the Tri-Valley, which includes Dublin, Pleasanton, and Livermore. This is more of urban sprawl. Lots of new communities, also great schools. And let's not forget, down along the water, you have the 880 corridor, which is much more central and a major commuting hub. I'm talking about Fremont all the way to Castro Valley along 580. And finally, let's not forget, because the East Bay covers all of Alameda and Contra Costa counties, you can't forget the Delta region up north, stretching from Pittsburgh all the way out into Oakley and Discovery Bay. I mean, talk about a completely different vibe. Because these pockets are so incredibly different from one another, if you're moving to the East Bay, you really need to figure out which one of these areas actually fits your lifestyle. If you're not entirely sure, you definitely want to give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email. We can ask you a few questions about your lifestyle and point you in the exact right direction. The fourth thing you need to know is that your daily work commute might be 30 minutes or it could be an hour and a half. And that difference could literally depend on one person getting a flat tire. If you're commuting in the East Bay or commuting from the East Bay into San Francisco or Silicon Valley, you have to deal with some of the most infamous freeways around here. First, you have 880, which the locals call the nasty Nimitz. It runs north and south along the water, and the traffic on it, it's almost always terrible. Then you have Highway 24 going through the Caldecott Tunnel. You also have Highway 580 going through the Altamont Pass, and of course, Interstate 80 leading up to the Bay Bridge. If any of these major bottlenecks have a wreck on them, good luck. It will completely explode your commute time. So if you're thinking about moving here, you are going to want to be very strategically placed. You need to look at exactly where your office is and then trace the route back to your house. Ask yourself these questions. Do you have to cross the toll bridge? Do you have to go through the tunnel? Or better yet, we can help you find a home close to the BART station. Taking BART is one of the best ways to completely bypass the freeway nightmare and save your sanity. Bottom line, we want to help you avoid an insanely long commute by placing you in the right spot. Number 5, you need to know the East Bay is a massive melting pot of deep-rooted locals and brand new transplants. In some cities, it feels like everyone you meet just moved there. But the East Bay has a really unique mix. You will meet people whose families have lived in Oakland, Berkeley, or Danville for 3 or 4 generations, and they are incredibly proud of that history. But at the same time, because of the tech industry, the universities, and the people moving out of San Francisco to find more space, there is a constant flow of new people moving in. Now, because of this, don't feel weird about putting yourself out there to make friends. A lot of people are looking for community here. Whether you're at a local coffee shop, the gym, or taking your kids to the park, there's a very good chance the person sitting next to you is also relatively new to the area and looking to connect. So don't be afraid to strike up a conversation. Number 6, the East Bay you are picturing in your head might not actually be where you end up living. When people visit here, they usually fall in love with very specific spots. They picture themselves in a charming craftsman bungalow in North Berkeley, maybe a trendy loft in downtown Oakland's Jack London Square, or a beautiful home high up in the hills with sweeping views of the bay. But once they start looking at actual price tags on those homes, reality sets in. To get the square footage they want or the nice backyard, a lot of buyers realize they need to look 20 or 30 miles further out. You might end up buying in places like Concord, Martinez, or further east out in the Tri-Valley or the Delta. So when you come here to scout neighborhoods, don't just spend all your time hanging out in the iconic, ultra expensive spots. Spend time exploring the communities where your budget actually makes sense. You need to explore where you'll actually be living day to day. Number 7, yes, we have some of the best world-class food you will ever eat in your entire life. But realistically, you're probably going to end up eating an In-N-Out burger more often than you think. The East Bay food scene is absolutely incredible. Berkeley is literally famous for starting the farm-to-table movement, and Oakland has an amazing diverse restaurant scene that completely rivals San Francisco. But the reality is, if you end up buying a house out in the suburbs, fighting commute traffic to get into the city, finding parking, and trying to get a reservation on a random Tuesday night is just too much of a hassle. So despite having all the amazing Michelin-rated or Michelin-level restaurants we have around here, you are mostly going to end up finding a few solid neighborhood spots, grabbing a super burrito at your local taqueria, or just hitting the In-N-Out drive-thru on your way home. Okay, number 8, you need to understand our microclimates because the weather here will absolutely mess with your head. People relocating here usually think California weather just means sunshine and 75 degrees everywhere. But in the East Bay, the temperature can literally change 20 degrees just by driving 15 minutes. If you live near the water in places like Berkeley or Oakland, you get the marine layer. It can be 60 degrees and foggy in the middle of summer. But the second you drive east through the Caldecott Tunnel into Walnut Creek, that fog disappears and it's suddenly 90 degrees. And the same thing happens heading into the Tri-Valley. For example, I live in Castro Valley and usually I ride my bike out to Pleasanton. I could completely be dressed for warmth when I head out, but as soon as I get to the top of Dublin grade, it's as if someone flicks a switch and turns on the heater. And don't even get me started on Livermore. It gets incredibly hot out there. Because of this, you can't just trust a general weather app. You have to check your specific city. And the golden rule of living here is never leave your house without layers and always keep a hoodie in your car. Number 9, you can't just fall in love with the idea of the East Bay. You have to fall in love with your specific pocket of it. Because this area is so incredibly spread out, you cannot plan on living in one region but spending all your free time in another. For example, if you buy a house out in the Delta or the Tri-Valley because you wanted a big backyard and quiet street, but you expect to hang out in the indie coffee shops and nightlife in downtown Oakland every weekend, you're going to be miserable with all that driving. Now, on the flip side, if you buy a place in Berkeley, but you really just want a quiet suburban family life with no traffic, you'll probably be stressed out. You have to be completely honest about what your day-to-day lifestyle actually looks like, and then commit to the specific neighborhood that supports it. If you move here and try to force a square peg into a round hole, it's not gonna work out. Number 10, when it comes to grocery shopping, we don't just have one giant cult supermarket like HEB in Texas. Instead, we have an incredible melting pot of cultures, which means our specialty grocery scene is absolutely next level. Because the East Bay is home to so many different immigrant groups, your weekly grocery run is going to get a major upgrade. That I promise you. You're not just limited to your standard big box supermarkets. We have massive spots like Ranch 99 Market for an incredible selection of Asian groceries. We have Seafood City for Filipino staples. You'll find massive Indian supermarkets, Middle Eastern markets, and authentic Mexican carnicerias all over the East Bay. If you love to cook or if you just love trying new foods, you're going to be in heaven. I promise you, within a few months of moving here, your pantry is going to look completely different. And you'll find yourself hitting up 2 or 3 different specialty markets just to get your favorite weekly items. Number 11, the people here are generally friendly and open-minded, but actually getting them to keep plans with you is a whole different story. There's this kind of phenomenon here called the Bay Area Flake. People in the East Bay are juggling demanding jobs, brutal commutes, and busy family lives. So when someone might happily tell you on Tuesday, hey, let's grab lunch this weekend, but by Friday night, they are completely exhausted from the week, and you'll get that text saying they need a rain check. Don't take it personally. But what you need to know is that if you want to build real community here, you have to be incredibly intentional. You can't just wait for people to invite you over. You need to put yourself out there. Once you break through that initial barrier, you will find some of the best, most loyal friends you could ask for. You just have to put in the effort first. Number 12, the school districts here are kind of funky and they completely dictate the housing market. If you're moving here with kids, you need to know that your city address doesn't automatically guarantee your school district. For example, you could buy a house with a Walnut Creek mailing address, assuming your kids will go to Walnut Creek schools, but you might actually be zoned for the Mount Diablo School District. This covers Concord and Pleasant Hill. Or you could live in Alamo or Danville, but be part of the San Ramon Valley Unified School District, which is not bad, by the way. It's actually one of the top school districts. Because certain districts in the East Bay, like Lamorinda, San Ramon, and Pleasanton, are so highly rated and competitive, buyers will pay massive premiums just to be on the right side of that invisible boundary line. If schools are a priority for your family, you can't just trust the name of the city on the listing. You have to verify the exact district boundaries before you make an offer, which is exactly something our team can help you navigate. Number 13, after you move here, your first utility bill might make you rethink the size of your house you just bought. Utility rates here are managed mostly by PG&E, and they are notoriously some of the highest in the entire country. If you buy a big house out in the Tri-Valley, the 680 corridor, or the Delta, where it routinely gets 100 degrees in the summer, you are going to be blasting that AC. And when you do, you have to be prepared to get smacked with an energy bill that might literally make your eyes water. On the flip side, if you buy one of those charming 100-year-old craftsman bungalow in Berkeley or Oakland, there's a good chance it has zero insulation, meaning you will be cranking up the heater all winter. This is a big reason you see solar panels on almost every other roof in the East Bay. So when you're figuring out your monthly housing budget, do not forget to factor in the cost of your utilities. Number 14, if you're not an outdoorsy person right now, you probably will be soon. The East Bay has a way of sucking you into its outdoor and fitness culture. A huge part of the lifestyle here revolves around the East Bay Regional Park District, which is a massive, incredible network of parks, lakes, and trails right in your own backyard. On any given weekend, it feels like half of the population is out hiking through the massive redwoods in Oakland, cycling to the top of Mount Diablo, or running through the Iron Horse Trail in the Tri-Valley. Even the urban areas, you've got hundreds of people walking and jogging the loop around Lake Merritt. Because the weather is decent year-round, there is a huge emphasis on getting outside. You might move here just for a job in tech or finance, and I promise you, a year later, you'll be buying hiking boots and a mountain bike. If you just sit on your couch inside all weekend, you are probably missing out one of the biggest perks of living here. Number 15, the weather here will completely mess with your internal calendar. If you're moving here from the Midwest or the East Coast, you are used to 4 distinct seasons. But in the East Bay, our seasons are completely backwards, most of the time. In the middle of winter, in January and February, we get our rain. So our hills turn vibrant, bright green. But by the time summer rolls around, all that grass dries out and the hills turn golden brown. Also, the hottest time of the year isn't always July. We usually get an Indian summer, which means our hottest temperatures often hit in September and October. You might buy a cozy layered costume for Halloween and end up sweating through it because it's 90 degrees outside. Now, the great thing, you don't have to shovel snow up here. But honestly, it takes a year or two for your brain to adjust to the fact that you're not going to get your traditional fall or winter. The good news is if you ever really miss the snow, Lake Tahoe is just a 3-hour drive away, depending if the freeway is open, by the way. So if you're trying to figure out where you actually want to live in the East Bay, whether it's here in Castro Valley or you just need help navigating the Tunnel Divide and all these different school districts, reach out to us. Give us a call, shoot us a text, or send an email. We love helping people figure out exactly which pocket of the East Bay fits their lifestyle perfectly. Hey, thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more East Bay real estate tips. Also, don't forget to check out my other channel, Savvy Homeowner.